Hey, how's everything? Thank you so much, Natalie, for having me on. I am so excited to be here and to connect with you.
I know, but I have to tell you something, Orly. Next time you're invited to a podcast, just let the people know that they need a few days to look at all the material that you send, because I've started to watch and I couldn't stop. It was so fascinating. And I was like,
Oh my goodness.
more and more. So I spent really hours literally watching all your, YouTube videos, your TED Talks, and I mean, everything you do is fascinating. We're going to talk about this. I'm so excited to
Thank
have
you so much. That really does mean a lot.
it is. It is. I'm just telling you, it's just a lot of hours that we have to be, prepared before the podcast. But before we start anything, if people don't know you yet, I want to read your bio so people know who you are, what powerhouse you are. I also want to thank Naomi because she's the one who introduced us to you, and I'm very grateful because I think that we have so much to learn from you, and so many things that we can be inspired. So let me start by reading the bio, and then we're going to dive right in. We have so many questions for you. So Orly Wahba is a kindness expert, an educator, a best-selling author, and a social entrepreneur. She is the founder of the global nonprofit Life Vest Inside, which develops educational kindness curriculum, runs leadership training programs, international events, and utilizes the power of technology and media to inspire positive change in the world. Life Vest Inside became globally known when her award-winning film Kindness Boomerang received over 100 million views and went viral. She was then invited to give a TED Talk and launched the Kindness Revolution. Prior to that, in 2017, Orly launched Netila, which produces 100% pure copper Netila cup, which is to wash your hands, for those of you who don't know what Netila is, and educate people about the importance of Netilat Yadayim and its connection with copper. Most recently, in 2019, Orly created and launched a mobile app called Abraham's Legacy in memory of her grandfather. It is a social network for prayer that connects people across the globe through the power of collective prayer. Through the app, users can collectively complete the book of Tehillim in minutes and in unison with people from all around the world. Wow. So at the time it took me to read the bio, there's probably like one podcast for every activity that we're listing here. So it's like, wow, amazing, amazing. So the first question I want to ask you, Orly, is all this is like, sounds, every project that I at least know about, sounds amazing, but I want to know, like, how do you manage your time? Because this is a podcast for entrepreneur, right? We're Jewish women entrepreneurs. We have businesses. We're very busy, but I don't think I know anyone who has that many projects and nonprofit and CEO. And I think I didn't read everything, right? You're an author and you're an activist and you're an entrepreneur and you're an educator and a motivational speaker. So my first question is, how do you manage all that? Can you give us a little bit of, backstage info here?
100%. I mean, the truth of the matter is it is a lot. I've always had a tremendous amount of passions for so many different things. My family always makes fun of me. They're like, okay, Orly, we're not going to tell you about another thing that's going on because you're just going to want to do it. I'm a very, very passionate person. I really love things. I love people. And so I get very, very excited. And I want to be involved in many different, in many different areas. But of course, timing is a very big thing because time is our greatest commodity that we have in this world. And so being able to manage my time is something that I constantly work on. I'm not going to say it's something, I perfected and I just, you keep it as is. Doesn't work like that. It's something I constantly have to, evaluate. I constantly evaluate how I'm spending my time and what's the best way for me to be efficient in what I'm doing so that I can produce all the things that I want to produce while at the same time also making sure that I'm, practicing self-care, which has been a very, very big thing in my life, creating balance. Especially when I started Life Vest Inside and started working in this area of kindness. I love it. This is something that's been a part of me ever since I was a little kid that dreamed of changing the world. That when you do that kind of work, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels awesome. So it's very easy to throw yourself into it. And before you know it, it's like 4 a.m. and, you're still on this high and you're going to sleep. You're sleeping for a couple of hours. I have to say that it's something that I've worked on a lot, how to create that work-life balance. And what I found is that when I'm actually segmenting time in my day for things that really give to me, I'm able to produce a lot more, in every respect. And I think that that's important for all of us to remember as entrepreneurs. What are those things, because in addition to us growing professionally, there's also personal growth, spiritual growth, right? And those things are extremely important. One of the things that I do in the very beginning, of every year before, like Rosh Hashanah, before it's the new year, a lot of people sit down, they write down their, New Year's resolution, what they want to accomplish over the year. And goals are fantastic. They're great. It's great to dream big, but the key, and this is a very big part of how I run things, is about thinking small. You have to dream big, but think small. What do I mean by that? Yes, you could have the big dream, but if you don't know how to break that dream into its pieces to understand, okay, you can have a big dream, but you're not going to get there tomorrow. It's a process. It's a process. Sometimes it's a year process. Sometimes it's a 5 year. Sometimes it's a 10 year. Sometimes it's a lifetime process. But if you could understand and break it down into the small things, the tangible things that you can do to get you to those goals, you have much more likelihood of succeeding. So one of the things that I do, which has helped me, is I always sit down before it's the new year, and I make a list, the bigger list, the dream list of, personal goals, professional goals, and spiritual goals of where I want to be, that in a year from now, when I look at this, I could say, wow, I really accomplished this, or I'm on my way to accomplishing it. Because it's important to also celebrate our small wins. We can be very hard on ourselves as entrepreneurs. And once I create this dream list, the next thing I do is I take each of those dreams and I break it down into, okay, well, what are the small things that are going to help me get there? So for example, okay, let's say like a personal goal or like a spiritual goal. All right. I'm a very spiritual person. I love connecting to God. It's something that's always been a part of me. So I know that I want to be able to nurture that connection. Okay, well, what are small things that I can do, whether it be on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis, tangible things to help me get there in another year from now? And I write those things down. I create, in a sense, like a checklist for myself that I require myself to look at it, to really stare at it every morning and every night, whether I can check the things off or not. But it reminds you of where you want to go. And the same thing is in terms of professional goals. And you have to continuously reevaluate, because if you just make a resolution in the beginning of a year and you keep it to the side and, and it collects dust and you come back in another year, the likelihood that you're going to get there is not so likely. But if you continue to check in with yourself, and that's why segmenting time in your own personal day for self-care is important, because that could be a daily check-in. Shabbat for me is a huge check-in, right? That's, every week it comes without fail that right when it's Shabbat, all the technology turns off, all the noise around the world, and you get to really reflect and look back at your week and see, well, where did I go? How far did I come? Where did I make some missteps? And how can I get back on that track?
Right.
But if you do that every day, whether it be with an exercise routine, a prayer routine, whatever it is, I know it seems strange. Well, how does that help you accomplish all the projects? It does, because you need to have that time where it's just you. Yes. When you're constantly going and producing, you actually can miss out on really incredible opportunities, as crazy as that sounds. And I constantly have to remind myself of this, but it's really in the breaks that I take that I'm the most creative and the most productive, because you allow your mind to think. And when you give it that space, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
It's you realizing that you're not in charge of this bus. You're not driving the bus. It's not driving the bus. But if you don't leave any room for that, then all of the weight is on your shoulders. But if you leave a little bit of space to knowing, look, you're doing the best that you can. I always say, God is my CEO. I just happen to work for him. So, so if you recognize that and you give that space, magic happens in that space. But like I said, it's a constant evaluation of how you're spending your day. And obviously segmenting what you need to accomplish, prioritizing on a constant basis.
I love this. I love this. Thank you so much, Orly, because I think that when people see people like you, from the outside with so much accomplishments and so many projects, and like, okay, I need to do more. I need to work more. I need to start another project. I don't do enough. I'm not enough. And I love the fact that you're pointing out to the self-care, to the breaks, to the stop, to the time off, to the exercising, to the spiritual. And as a business coach, that's what I teach. that's what I remind myself all the time, of course, because like you said, it's a journey. It's not just, okay, I'm here, I got there, and that's it. So I think it's very important that people that are accomplishing so much remind everyone else that, hey, I'm not doing this because I'm working around the clock. I'm doing this by also
Exactly.
taking breaks and by also taking care of myself, which is
And to
so,
not and to not be so hard on ourselves. We tend to be so super hard on ourselves, and it's easy to fall into that. It's
right.
easy to fall into that because we look around at other people accomplishing. And look,
Exactly.
I'm not speaking ill about social media because without it, you and I wouldn't be connecting right now, right?
Exactly.
Without it, the film I created wouldn't have reached so many millions of people. But we have to be very careful because oftentimes if we get sucked into it and are constantly just looking at everybody else in our field that's doing and doing, it makes us feel
Yes.
like we're nothing. And that's a very dangerous place to be in. It's a
Yeah.
very dangerous place to be in because you have to realize that at the end of the day, a person can show you whatever they want to show you on their wall. Everybody has their struggles. Everybody has their days where it's hard for them to get out of bed, where they don't know where they're going, where they question. I do. I
Of
definitely do.
course.
It's normal to have that. If you don't have it, again, you're just if somebody tells you don't, it's fake. It's not true. Everybody
That's
has
true.
those moments, and that's why self-care is very important because, you know, if you are staying afloat, then you can keep other people afloat. You can keep all of your other projects afloat. But if you're drowning, if
Yes.
you drowned, you can't help anybody else. And
Exactly.
this is a lesson I've very, very much work on continuously because it was hard. It's hard to learn that, especially when you like to give. When you're a giver, it's very easy to get caught into that giving because it feels really, really good.
Yeah,
But
and
then,
like you said, when you're passionate, you don't feel like it's work, right? So
yeah,
you're
exactly.
and doing it doesn't feel like work, right?
Yeah.
So I love your answer because it's a great transition to my other question for you. Because I read and I heard what you said about being a dreamer your whole life. So from the time that you were 4 years old and your family saying, "Oh yeah, she's dreaming," I totally, totally can, relate to that. And I can imagine also, when you see a little kid with, thinking things bigger than herself. And I could see you, being at that age. I have no problem seeing that. And I think a lot of people, remember themselves with those dreams. And I speak a lot about the Born to Do, right? My program is the Born to Do business. We have
Yeah.
something we're born to do. And so I'm definitely convinced that we have something in our inner being that is our mission, that is our purpose, and that we're here to deliver it. But my question to you is, and I'm sure that this is the question that a lot of people have, it's one thing to have a dream, it's one thing to have an idea. It's one thing to want to change the world. It's one thing to want to bring kindness to the world, as presumptuous as that may seem, right, or may sound. But how do you translate that into everything, which is a book and a TED talk and a million views on YouTube and projects and dances all around the world? And I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but like, how do you translate this dream? And that's why I love when you said taking the dream and breaking it down, because I'm sure that this is what you do. But I think people will look at the dream and say, okay, I want to bring kindness into the world. What are the steps? Like, I have no idea how to translate that
Exactly.
into a step. And I have to say to you also that when I read your bio, I was like, okay, it sounds really nice, but what is she doing? The idea is nice, but what is the doing behind it? And then when I went and I saw everything you're doing, actually, it's like, wow, this is what she's doing. So my question to you is, how did you translate an idea, a concept, a dream into something that actually has an impact, is actually contributing, is actually doing something in the world? That's my question to you.
So it's a big question. I'll tell you the first thing that's I think the most important thing is the prerequisite behind all this. And I know you know this is you have to know your why.
Right.
If you know your why in life, right? That born to like what are you born? If you know your why, the how will present itself to you. Because if we don't understand our why, then we can get so bogged down in that's impossible. But if you know your why, what ends up driving you, why am I able to do the things that I'm doing? It's because my why is so strong inside of me. And if you know it and if it's connected to something personal, then that's going to continuously push you even when you falter, even when you stumble, even when you have a failure because everyone has failures. We have many of them. Those failures are actually they're needed in our life, because only when we make those mistakes can we learn, well, which way to go, how to navigate. And also it's actually a test to see, are you going to continue to pursue that why? So if your why is very, 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 very strong and connected to you, that definitely helps you. And just briefly, because I want to go into another aspect of this, the more practical aspect of it. For me, my why, again, this was something that I very much dreamt of ever since I was a 4-year-old kid, like you said. But my why, even though it was there from when I was young, really came into fruition during hard moments in my life. Because I always say that when a person is at their lowest, they're actually at their highest potential. And they
Mhm.
can go one way or the other. When we are at our lowest, we're at our highest potential. And that for me happened at a young age. When I was 15, I went through a very severe depression after having a fire in my house and my family losing everything. My family was moving around for years, not living under the same roof. It was a very, very, very difficult time. And that first year was the hardest, trying to show the world that you're strong when really you're just breaking down inside and you don't know who to turn to. And you don't want to be more of a burden on your family than already what they're going through. I went through a very difficult time at that young age. And the truth of the matter is, had I chosen a different path or a different direction and just completely given up, and I was there. I was in a dark depression. And when I say dark, I'm talking about suicidal dark. I didn't believe anymore that there was a reason for me to be here. And that's a very dangerous place to be. But when I looked at myself in the mirror one morning waking up and I didn't see that 4-year-old Orly that dreamed of changing the world looking back at me, that scared me. It scared me. And in that moment, I made a promise to myself to be there for others the way I wished somebody would have been there for me, and to see others the way I wish somebody would have seen me.
Mhm.
That promise is my why until today. It's what gets me up in the morning, because there are going to be hard times. There are going to be times where you want to throw in the towel, where things aren't going well, where you're getting so much discouragement. Everybody's telling you, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time in this? You think you're going to make a difference? You think you're going to change the world? Who do you think you are? Those moments are going to continuously come. But I remember my why, the thing that continues to push me forward, is that 15-year-old kid. That 15-year-old kid that made that promise to be there and to see people the way that I wish somebody would have seen me. And that's why I get up in the morning. But more than that, and talking more on the practical sense, right? How do you take an idea? This happens to be the thing I love doing most. You mentioned earlier that I run a leadership training program, and it's through my event, through my international event, Dance for Kindness. And the main purpose of this, people like, look at this event. It's people dancing all over the world, doing a flash mob on the same day. It's really beautiful. But the actual impact of this event is the group leaders that run these events around the world, because they go through a group leader training process where they learn not only how to organize an event, but what they learn is how to take any idea for positive change in the world that's way bigger than themselves and
Wow.
break it down into its parts. Because
Wow.
like you
You're
said, a lot.
you're actually teaching that.
Exactly. Because here's the thing. A lot of people have dreams, but people don't know where to start. And because the dream seems so much bigger than you, it can become so overwhelming that you throw in the towel before you actually even got started. Before you even get started, you're throwing in the towel. But if you learn a process, and it is a process you can call on time and time again, it is a process that relates, in every aspect of your life, whether it be business, whether it be personal, whether it be spiritual, of how to take something big, see this big dream, and cut it down into its pieces. You need to think small, understanding what is the process. How do I get there? What do I do first? And that's exactly, I tell you, if it's okay, I'd love to give you one example. I know we brought up
Yes.
Dance for Kindness. I have to tell you, almost with I'm not going to be able to go into all of the different things. Almost every one of the big ideas and the things that I brought into the world, I had a dream about it before I did it. Honestly, I know it sounds weird, but legit, I had it in a dream.
In a real dream, you mean
In
sleeping?
an actual dream, sleeping.
Okay.
Okay. It happened to me before the Kindness Boomerang film, before Dance for Kindness, before created Abraham's Legacy. Like I woke up and drew the
Inspiration,
sketches.
channeling, intuition, downloading.
I'll tell you, we all receive messages of things we're meant to do. But just know that as you're receiving that message, somebody else in the world is also receiving it. What differentiates the two of you is who's going to take action on it. Now, it can seem very big. So how do I take action? But you have to understand, again, talking, let's say, Dance for Kindness. Okay. This event that was happening around the world, people dancing all under the banner of kindness in all these different countries. How was I doing this? I had just left teaching. I was a middle school teacher. I knew nothing about technology. I didn't know how, I didn't even have an email address. You know what I'm saying? Like I really was so not tech savvy. And I had a crazy dream about people, thousands and thousands of people in front of the UN. This is what my dream was, okay? Holding flags of their country. And on the back of it was the motto of the organization: by living kindly, change is possible. And everybody was together dancing and singing in unison. And I woke up and I said, wow, because the power of dance, there's actual science behind this. Not only are you releasing endorphins, but it creates a sense of camaraderie, it creates a sense of connection, of community. A lot can be done when people come together. That's why the Olympics are what they are, right? When people join together in an activity, suddenly that's where tolerance is able to breed, because education leads to tolerance. And when you learn about other people and you see other people that are different than you, but yet there's similarities, suddenly you're able to create these connections. And it's very beautiful. And I said, how am I going to do this? I'm not a dancer. Okay. I'm into sports. I played basketball my whole life. I can't dance for nothing. I love dancers. I think they're the coolest people. I can't do it. How am I supposed to do this? I don't know people around the world. What am I doing?
Right.
But it came from having that dream to saying, okay, my background is as a teacher. Okay. So as a teacher, your main objective is not just to give over information, but to be able to teach your students also how to learn a process that they can learn even without you.
Wow.
That was always my goal as a teacher, not to just throw stuff that they throw back at me, but how can I teach them to learn themselves? How can they become educators too?
Right.
Because that's really when you're empowering somebody. So I said, all right, if I don't know how to do something, before I'm going to tell somebody else that they have to do it, I first need to know how to do it. And so I created a small event in New York, right? With just people in my community. Ended up being like 80 people that signed up in my community. And I did it in Times Square. Okay. Had no idea how I was going to even get sound there or what. I found people on the street that play music and plugged in and we did this event. And I had a couple of students, 7th grade students, okay, that took video of the event. And I put it together and I learned, okay, well, how do I organize an actual flash mob? Now, once I learned it, the next thing was this event and this organization is way bigger than me. It's not about me. So now I need to create a process for other people to follow. And that's exactly what I did. I wrote out a handbook. How did I do this? I need to share with somebody how I did all of these different steps. And then put a message out there, literally on social media. Hey guys, I'm looking to do this crazy event. I don't know if you want to join me or what, but you can sign up to become a group leader. And before I knew it, there were 30 people representing 15 countries that signed up. And this was in year 1. I didn't have a website.
Wow.
Okay. All I had was this concept of understanding processes and how to make things easy for people to follow. If you create a model that other people can easily follow, that's really key. And from there, it grew out to over 50 countries, you know?
That's the scaling process, right? That's exactly what we teach in scaling. So you did it intuitively, but having a process and, sharing it with others is exactly what we do when we want to scale an activity or a business, to have more people being able to either enjoy it or pass it around. So it's amazing. I love that.
And again, you just need to think about the next step.
Right.
Yes, you have to create the plan, but think people can get so bogged down by either by the details or by the larger vision that they won't get started.
Right.
The only way to do something is to get started. I had no clue.
And I had no idea. It sounds like your group leader training is a leadership training and teaches them how to do that. So
exactly, you see it in real time, how you break things down. And suddenly it's like group leaders that have gone on to create and start their own entities and own organizations that are now reaching in the thousands of people, and they attest their success to what they've learned through the leadership training program. So understanding that you can do something that is bigger than you, even without anything.
Yeah. So I love that. And I'm sure that people listening to that, and, I'm known for asking the questions that people are wondering in their minds. So everyone tells me, oh, every time you ask a question, it's exactly the question I wanted to ask. So I can hear already, in people's minds saying, this is great. The dream is great. The process is great. The idea is great. But I'm gonna say the dirty word here. I don't think it's dirty, but money, right?
Yeah.
Money. So
Yeah.
people are going to say that's great, but how do you either make money, or how do you, invest in such? I mean, of course you said you don't have a website, you don't have, but you have a job, you need somehow to pay the bills.
Yep.
So I'm a business coach, and I love everything behind, like, what is the business model, like, how do you make this, not only because we want you to be successful, but also because we know that the more money you're going to have, the bigger the
Exactly. The more you
organization,
can scale. Yes, 100%.
the
And
more
this,
people are going to be impacted. So I want to know, like,
you're
how do you
asking
build a
such a
business?
good question. Such a good question. I have to tell you, this was my, and I would say even till today, probably still is one of my biggest weak points. Okay. I know where my weaknesses are. Okay. And I'll tell you why it was my weak point in the very beginning. Because when I first started this, I had left my job teaching. Okay. I invested all my savings into this organization. Okay. A full-time volunteer. Till today, I don't take a salary from this entity. Till
Wow,
today, I do not.
wow,
So you might ask, well, how are you actually then living? I do give talks. I'm a motivational speaker, and so I do it in other means. And I chose that for a specific reason. I want this to be just solely, just like L'Shem Shemaim, just to give out this good into the world. Really, that is my big core mission. But you still have to figure out how you're going to sustain that entity. Savings only go so far. And in the beginning, I'm a very idealistic person. I was like, I don't want, I want this to be able to reach people. I don't want people to think, oh, that has to do with money. And I had a very, I guess, like you use the word dirty, or I had this like negative perception, of what that means if money is involved. And that was wrong of me. And again, it happened. And again, that's a whole nother story of how that came to be, because it's not something that was common for me. I didn't have a negative or a bad relationship with money. But when you start your own initiative, and now you're more in the position, because when I was younger, like people used to come to me and ask me to raise funds for them. It was very easy for me. If I'm passionate about something, forget about it.
right,
But the minute it became my own thing, that became very, very different, because it became very personal, and it was really hard for me. And then my relationship with it and my view of it really changed. And I have to say, it affected me tremendously. It's still work that I'm doing now. It's still healing work that I'm doing till today, to be very honest. It really is. But when I first started, again, I'm just going to use the example of Dance for Kindness because that's what we spoke about already. Everything was free. Everything was free. Okay. The event was free. Like I was giving, and what was happening is that this event was, in a sense, bankrupting the organization. I was like, how am I going to continue this? And it's once I created that revenue model that it was able to get more to a place of sustainability. Yes, there's always uncomfort. It would have been better if in the beginning you think of what those revenue models are. But I wasn't thinking in that direction. And suddenly I'm like, okay, I need to be able to, there's a donation fee when you register, you have a small fee. And now when group leaders register, they don't pay to be a group leader, but they have a fundraising responsibility, just like as though you're running in a marathon.
mm-hmm,
But it took me time to get to this, and also to introduce it into the mix, because when you start a model and it doesn't have a revenue stream in it, and everything is free, and then suddenly you change it, yes, you're going to have people that are going to be upset or
right,
say something. What I've learned is that you cannot please everybody. And that was very hard for me to learn, because I love people. I want everybody to be happy.
right,
But you have to understand and realize, and those that really do know you and appreciate the work that you're doing will understand that revenue needs to flow into the entity in order for it to continue in order for it to thrive, and in order for you to thrive. Because if you're not thriving, you're working on your entity from a negative energy, and that negative energy is felt.
right,
So by saying to yourself that you deserve, or that you have to realize revenue does need to come in, it's not a dirty thing at all. Actually, it's the most healthiest thing that you can do,
oh yes,
because it shows that, number one, you respect your time, and you recognize that this is bigger than you.
yeah,
Because if
definitely,
you don't do it, if you don't do that hard work, it will crush you and it will end with you. That God forbid something happens to you tomorrow, things don't continue past
And like you said, you will resent your activity, resent the
you will
people.
resent it. Exactly. And that's a very dangerous place to be. So I've I've had to create revenue models within the entity, whether it be through merchandise sales, whether it be Dance for Kindness now is our biggest annual draw in terms of revenue. For the entity. It was the past 2 years have been COVID. So you have to, everything had to shift and whatever. But hopefully now we're going to be back to doing
Oh,
things in,
definitely.
in live person. But yes, uh,
Yes.
those things you have to be able to place those things in
Um,
within your planning. And if you do
yes.
it early on, it will
Yeah.
save you a much bigger headache later. Doesn't mean you
But I'm
can't do it, but
Right,
oh
but
boy.
I'm so happy that you're being honest and that you're saying, because we all have the places where we still have to work on, and I think that it goes also together. Purpose-driven people and people that have big missions, they're usually not the best at monetizing their gifts or at
Yeah,
finding because it's part of who you are, and so
coming from your passion, it's really coming from a place of love. So it's hard if you don't have a partner that is going to offset that to get you on that track, and you need to remind yourself. So I am trying to be much more mindful, especially with my newer initiatives like Abraham's Legacy, to make sure that
from the
I'm going to
beginning.
build it in a way that is going to be sustainable. And yeah, it's work. It's
Yes,
inner
it's
work, honestly. It's a lot of
mindset.
inner work too.
It's mindset shifts, and it's a lot of things that I teach, and I can see the patterns in people exactly like you described, that have this purpose driven passion. This is where the mindset has to shift, and
Yeah,
so yeah, thank you for being authentic about that. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because I
of
think a lot of
course.
people that are purpose driven have to learn about this and have to see other people that went through that work and see that at some point it's not sustainable. You have
Yeah.
to do the work.
And also, when you don't have a lot, you're very mindful of where you spend every dollar. I know how to squeeze a lot out of a dollar, and you learn a lot because suddenly you have to be everything. You have to be your bookkeeper and your marketing person and you're this person.
But
At
like we
least in
said,
the beginning, until you expand. In the
right,
beginning, until you expand, and then you can delegate.
right,
So you learn those processes, but
yeah,
it's definitely
it's
a work. It's a
definitely
work.
work. So before we end, and we're already a little bit over time, but I cannot stop this finish this interview before I talk about Ukraine. We said that before the podcast. Everybody knows that my business manager Anastasia is there, and I've been very very personally involved, and I know it's on everybody's mind. And when I saw all the work that you were doing around kindness, I was like, I have to ask you,
Yeah.
what are the acts of kindness that we can do, because that's the biggest frustration. Of course, it's very hard for the people that are going through this tragedy, of course, but for everyone else who is watching from the side and being so frustrated not to be able to get on a plane and safely.
Exactly. What can we do? Well, there's a lot of things that we can do. Okay. Now look, there are things that we can do monetarily, but even if you don't have a dollar, you don't have you can still do things. For example, whether it is that you're contributing to efforts, again, whether it's coming from your pocket, however little or big it might be. And if you don't have that, you can still be involved. Sending positive messages, is very important. A lot of people think, well, what is my message going to do? I'm like one person, there's a zillion other people sending messages. Really not true. You know, I have to tell you, one of the things that I do till today, whenever I receive an email from, a member of the organization that was impacted by something that, either that was created or that I created or something I put out there, I always star it. Always. I respond to every single message. And there's a reason why. When times when you're feeling down or you're feeling low or you're feeling like you can't continue, those are the messages that keep you going. Well, it's the same way. Words are very, very, very powerful. So
Mm,
maybe you cannot give with your money, from your wallet, but you can most certainly give from your heart, simply by sharing, by posting. But on top of that, each and every one of us can do simple acts of kindness that actually prevent. I'm not going to say prevent things like this from happening in the world. These are very, very big things, obviously. But again, I say, you dream big, you have to think small. What are the simple things that we can do? Simply being able to connect with others, have dialogue with others. I think that the reason why there's so much animosity and aggression and violence in the world, okay, is because we've forgotten how to have dialogue. We've forgotten how to speak to somebody that may have a different viewpoint than ours. Because in today's world, you only are seeing on your feed the things that are connected to you, that you believe in. But we have to realize that there are people out there in this world that have different thoughts and different ideologies and different ethnicities and cultures. If we can be more open and be less judgmental. Now, I know you might say, but Orly, how's that really affecting Ukraine? Well, no, that's again, that's just looking at the small. You're looking at the here and now. I'm looking at years from now. I'm looking forward to 10, 20 years from now. Yes, it does make a difference. It does make a difference.
Yes, it does.
Those small things that we do, the way in which we engage with people, the way in which we see people, the way in which we are able to be opened to people and embrace them for their different ideologies, to have dialogue, not close somebody off, because those things prevent future atrocities from happening in the world.
Definitely.
So that's my perspective on it, really.
I love it. Thank you so much. I think that everyone can learn something from this, and everyone can do something with this, which is, like you said, dream big and start small. That's a very, very, very good motto. So thank you so much, Orly. Unfortunately, I know there's so much more that we can talk about. We're probably going to have to invite you again with all of your initiatives. We're going to share the link to your website and to your book, because everyone can know more and dive in your world. And like I said, it took me I was going on a journey, and it's fascinating, all the work that you do. And I think that the TED Talks and the books and the speaking engagements that you have, everyone is invited. And I know you'll put the link there, and we'll put the link also next to the podcast. Thank you so much, Orly, for.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll put a link also to the event. I have an event tonight in another 2 hours for those that may want to join.
Yes.
It's about, since we're in the week of Purim, it's about Purim and the mitzvah of Netilat Yadayim. So I will put a link to it that you can join. It's a free event on Zoom. But thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Orly. And see you, everyone, for our next episode of the Jewish Women Entrepreneur. Thank you so much.